Ana barely had time to breathe before the client tossed the phrase with disdain. "You're just a Mexican. You must know how to take care of children, right?" She shrank, feeling the weight of humiliation sinking down her spine, but her eyes flashed with anger. That was the last time someone would look at her like that. The contempt she felt wasn't just for the client anymore, but for a system that saw her as nothing more than a shadow. That comment, that look, would be the fuel for something much bigger. She who was just a babysitter in his eyes would soon return as the lawyer who would tear down the barriers he and everyone else had built around her. If you also believe in the strength of those who fight against injustice, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the story of overcoming that will impact you. The sound of the door closing echoed through the reception of the law firm Barrett & Sullivan in the heart of Manhattan. Ana Hernandez, a 27-year-old Mexican woman, was organizing the desk with the precision of someone who had done it thousands of times. She had been there since 7 a.m. and still had a few hours before she could head to college. Her uniform, simple and without any prestigious marks, made her feel invisible, a reflection of how many saw her. It was then that the client entered, with the smile of someone who believes the world still revolves around him. James Walker, a successful investor, known for his coldness in business, walked in hurriedly, speaking on the phone. When he noticed Ana's presence, he hung up and approached, his eyes instantly locking onto her with suspicion. There were no sweet words, not even a "good morning. Can you help me? Or should I wait for the real secretary of the firm?" He spoke, in a tone bordering on mockery, not giving her more than a quick glance. Ana froze for a second, her body wanting to react, but the words, the usual certainties, came to the surface. "Remember where you are, what you are. Mexican secretary, nobody important." He didn't see her, didn't respect her. It was just another day of being invisible to everyone around her. But she knew what he didn't. She had dreams, and his were about to be shattered because of it. "I think I can help, yes. I can check what you need," she replied, her voice firm, but with a growing internal tension. "Don't come at me with polite answers. You're not the person I'm expecting to solve my problems." "Fine, you can get me a coffee. Maybe you'll be more useful that way," he insisted, without even waiting for a response, heading towards a chair in the waiting room. The pain, the disdain, the feeling of being diminished once again. Ana took a deep breath and walked to the coffee machine. Indignation grew inside her, but she knew she couldn't give in. This wasn't new, it was part of the process, part of the harsh reality that Mexican women like her faced every day. But something inside Ana was changing. She would no longer hide, not in silence. She made the coffee, took another deep breath, and walked back to the waiting room. His look already told her what to expect. He barely looked at her as he took the cup, with a gesture as if he considered this a favor. But Ana knew that this was only the beginning. He had made a mistake, underestimating her. He thought she had no more than a secondary role to play. However, what he didn't know was that she was determined to take a step forward. She would no longer be a babysitter. She would no longer be an invisible employee. Ana had found her cause, her purpose, and that look of contempt only fueled her motivation for a future where she would be more than he had ever imagined. And as the sound of the law office door closed behind him, Ana felt stronger, more powerful. Something was about to change, and she knew exactly what she had to do to turn the tables. The clock read 6:45 p.m. when Ana left the Barrett & Sullivan office. The workday had been intense, as always, but she couldn't afford to relax. Her dream didn't leave room for breaks, and the clock showed no mercy. With the weight of work papers under her arm, she crossed the streets of Manhattan, heading towards New York University, where she was studying law. Classes started at 7:00 p.m., but she always arrived a bit earlier, giving her a few minutes to breathe, adjust her uniform, and prepare for what was to come. Ana knew that every minute there was a fight, not just against physical exhaustion, but against the constant feeling of being treated as an outsider. Her classmates, mostly white and from more privileged backgrounds, seemed oblivious to the effort she put into being there. They didn't see the woman who, during the day, served coffee and organized schedules, and at night, transformed into someone trying to prove her worth in a room full of future lawyers. When she entered the classroom, the atmosphere was lively, with conversations and laughter. Some classmates, still discussing details of the day's case, didn't pay attention to her. Ana knew the looks she received weren't of full acceptance. They were quick, superficial, and almost always accompanied by a slight smile or a word of no importance. To many there, she was just another student, another Mexican trying to be part of a world that wasn't made for people like her. She sat in her usual chair and began organizing her materials when Rachel Martin, a classmate who always seemed to have an opinion on everything, approached. "I just don't understand how someone with so much potential ends up in a secretarial job," she said loudly, not caring if Anna was listening or not. Anna swallowed hard. It wasn't the first time she had heard something like that, and it probably wouldn't be the last. But that night, she felt the weight of the words more than ever. All she wanted was to show that she had much more to offer than being underestimated. She wanted the world to see that she, a Mexican woman, could be much more than the stereotype many insisted on projecting onto her. Professor Dr. Helen Morris started the class, and the attention of the class shifted to the content. But Anna couldn't fully focus. The murmurs of her classmates and Rachel's words echoed in her mind. She felt the weight of those expectations that had never been hers. She could no longer just be someone trying. She had to be a winner, even if she was fighting alone against a system that didn't see her as equal. The class on labor rights began. When it was her turn to present her case, the tension in Anna's body increased. She knew everyone was waiting for her mistake. They knew that no matter how prepared she was, the simple fact of being who she was would be enough for any slip-up to be criticized with more intensity. She began to speak, her voice slightly trembling but firm. She explained the complexities of labor law clearly, referring to cases and precedents, her posture showing preparation. However, Dr. Morris, always attentive to detail, interrupted her. "It's interesting how you can still present this case without a clear understanding of the basic concepts of our legislation, don't you think?" She smiled, as if she already knew Anna's response would be flawless, but the goal was to make her uncomfortable. The irony in the professor's voice made the other classmates look on discreetly, waiting for Anna's reaction. The silence in the room was almost deafening. Anna felt the blood rush to her face. Each word from Dr. Morris felt like a sharp dagger, but instead of succumbing, Anna took a deep breath and continued her explanation. She would not let prejudice be greater than her determination. At the end of the presentation, Anna received a slight approval from the professor, but she knew it wasn't sincere. Gregory Thompson, a classmate who had always treated her with disdain, turned to his friends and whispered something, as if it weren't meant to be heard. The chuckles spread through the room, but Anna remained silent, her heart pounding with a strength she could barely contain. At the end of the class, she quickly left. The physical pressure of being in two such distant worlds, the office and the university, was beginning to take its toll. But as she walked through the streets of Manhattan back home, she felt something growing inside her. It wasn't the shame they had tried to plant in her. It was a flame of determination. She was tired of being underestimated. Not anymore. She was going to show everyone her true worth. Now, more than ever, Anna knew what she needed to do to stand out and do justice to herself. The night always seemed like the same routine for Anna. After another long workday, she crossed the city of Manhattan to reach college, where she faced uncomfortable stares and silent challenges. But something started to change in the past few weeks. Each day, each presentation, seemed to bring Anna closer to understanding herself as part of this new world she was trying to conquer. She no longer felt so invisible. Something inside her was maturing, something she still didn't fully understand, but that motivated her to go further. That night, the class would be about civil rights, and Anna had an important presentation. Before entering the room, she met Carlos Rivera, a Latino lawyer who had already heard about her performance. He worked as a legal consultant at one of the college's partner firms and, in a casual encounter in the hallway, asked her how her academic journey was going. Carlos was someone she looked up to. Always calm, with an understanding gaze, he treated her as an equal. "I know the pressure is high, but you have more than just potential. You have the tools, Anna. Just trust in them," he said, smiling softly. Those words were like a breath of confidence. No one with more experience had ever treated her that way. Carlos noticed the hesitation in her eyes, and instead of offering empty criticisms like other professors, he challenged her in a way that made her want to prove he was right. She did have the tools, and now was the time to use them. That night, the room was full. Gregory Thompson, the arrogant classmate, was there, sitting at the front, always with that air of superiority. Anna didn't care anymore. It was as if, by walking in, she had left behind the version of herself that felt inferior. She knew she was about to do something important. When it was her turn to present, Anna stood with confidence. She had already prepared, reviewed every point of the case she was going to defend regarding racial discrimination in employment contracts. But this time, there was something different in her posture. When she began to speak, the words came out clearly, with a control she never imagined she had before. For the first time, she wasn't just trying to impress, but was truly seeking to understand the issue in depth. She knew the impact of discrimination. She had felt it herself, but now she wanted everyone there to understand that knowledge, the fight for justice, had nothing to do with the color of someone's skin or their origins. The entire room fell silent as she presented the case. She used practical examples, case law, and an eloquence that no one expected. And then, as a reflection of everything she had been experiencing, something made her follow a bolder line of argument. Anna began to confront the system, the hierarchy that separated those seen as deserving of opportunities and those, like her, who had to fight for what no one offered. She was no longer just talking about labor rights. She was talking about the essence of a society that still segregated those who were different. When she finished, there was a long silence in the room. The tension was palpable, but Anna felt something had changed. She looked at Dr. Morris, who was staring at her with an expression Anna couldn't decipher, but she knew there was recognition there. It was Carlos at the end of the class who came to her with a smile. "That's it, Anna. That was powerful. You're not just a student now. You're a lawyer in the making. You have the voice that many are waiting to hear." But the greatest impact came from where Anna least expected it. Gregory, always with his posture of arrogance, now looked at her differently. As he passed by her, he did something he had never done before. A slight nod of the head. It wasn't much, but for Anna, it was enough. She knew he had noticed the change in her. Something inside him, perhaps his own prejudice, had begun to crack. That night, as she walked through the streets of Manhattan, Anna felt for the first time that she was on the right path, not because people immediately started respecting her, but because she had finally started respecting herself. Anna realized that the true transformation was happening within her. It wasn't just about overcoming external struggles, but about conquering her own confidence, about being able to challenge herself and believe in her abilities. She now understood that in the end, it wasn't just the fight against other people's prejudice that mattered, but how she saw herself, how she presented herself to the world. And with that, she knew the real game was just beginning. The next morning, Anna couldn't stop thinking about the night before. The presentation at college still echoed in her mind, but now there was something more important at stake. During the week, the Barrett and Sullivan office had been notified of a major negotiation that would require everyone's attention. Anna knew this could be the moment for her to stand out in an even clearer way, but the shadows of discrimination were never far away. The client was a high-profile investor, James Walker, the same man who had treated her with disdain weeks earlier. He was now involved in a multi-million-dollar deal with the firm, and the office was under pressure to ensure the success of the contract. The partners were gathered in the main conference room when the phone rang. Anna, as always, was the first to answer. "It's for you, Anna," said the assistant with a tone that seemed more like an order than a simple notice. She picked up the phone, her chest tight, knowing that Walker didn't appreciate her presence. He spoke impatiently from the other end. "Anna, I already told you I need the information now. And don't forget, you're here to do your job, not interrupt me with stupid questions," he said, with his usual disdain, unaware that this was no longer the Anna from before. Anna took a deep breath and, with the calm she had earned over the past few weeks, replied, "Mr. Walker, I'm aware of my responsibilities. The information is being prepared and will be delivered within the deadline. Ms. Morris is already working on the analysis you requested." She knew he underestimated her. She knew he thought she was just another assistant, just another Mexican woman he could speak to however he pleased. But now Anna was determined not to give in anymore. When the meeting with the client took place that afternoon, the tension was palpable. James Walker entered the room as if he were the center of everything, arrogant, with no respect for the work Anna's team was doing. He walked straight to the partners, ignoring her presence. But when he asked a technical question about the negotiation, Anna, with the composure of a lawyer, was the first to respond. "If I may, Mr. Walker, the clause you're mentioning is a point of contention. The best way to address it is by reviewing the payment terms, which can be adjusted more efficiently, Anna calmly explained, using all the knowledge she had acquired. The silence in the room was palpable. The firm's partners looked surprised. They didn't expect her to have the confidence or ability to intervene at that level. James Walker, on the other hand, seemed a bit stunned, narrowing his eyes, trying to hide his discomfort. "Who do you think you are to intervene in a high-level meeting like this?" Walker shot back, turning toward her with a threatening look. "You don't belong here. You never did." Walker's words hit Anna like an electric shock, but instead of shrinking, she stood up slowly, with the same firmness she had shown at the college. His look of disdain no longer intimidated her. She had faced much greater challenges within herself to become who she was now. "I belong here, Mr. Walker, and I'm more qualified than you realize. You may not see me as someone worthy of being in this room, but every word I speak here is more than you'll ever understand," Anna said, her voice now firm and full of authority. "What you don't understand is that people like you, who think they have the right to belittle us, are losing sight of what really matters. It's not about money. It's not about power. It's about dignity. And I have mine." The room was in absolute silence. Even the partners seemed impressed. Anna knew she had spoken the truth. She was no longer willing to let racism, prejudice, and limiting assumptions shape what she could achieve. She had transformed from an underestimated woman into someone who, with knowledge and courage, was challenging the status quo. James Walker tried to retreat, but he knew the battle he had started would not be easily won. For the first time, he felt that the woman in front of him was not someone he could easily knock down. "You will regret all of this, Anna," he said angrily, trying to regain his arrogant posture. But Anna didn't respond. She knew her words had already echoed louder than any other reply. When the meeting ended, she left the room with her head held high. She knew something had changed forever, not just in how she saw herself, but in how others now saw her. The power of her transformation was there, stamped in the eyes of others, in the way she had asserted herself. And as she left the office, a feeling of relief and revenge mixed in her chest. She knew that this was just a moral victory, but to her it was more than enough. She had finally begun to write her own path. And you, have you ever been in a situation where the world tried to diminish you, but you got up and showed your true worth? Share your story in the comments. Let's support and inspire each other, because together we are stronger. If you were moved by this story of overcoming and struggle, leave your like now and subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the chance to follow more stories that will touch you deeply. Stay now with another emotional story.